Hook your ass up, boy. Oh my God! Oh shit! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! What the?
You just watched the moment 29-year-old Ramon Harris was fatally stabbed on Atlanta's BeltLine. But look at what happened before that final moment. There was an argument. People were moving around them. And then suddenly a knife came out. Within seconds, Harris was on the ground with a wound to his neck. But the man accused of killing him, 54-year-old Johnathan Hamby, was still there when police arrived. And when officers confronted him, he gave them his version of what had just happened. He said he was defending himself. Now watch the footage again. This time, don't just watch the stabbing. Watch the people around them. Watch the movements. Watch what happens immediately before the knife appears. Because police say Hamby and Harris didn't know each other before that day. So what turned a confrontation between strangers into a deadly attack? And why did it escalate so quickly? Those are details we are going to get into. But before we do, please help me out. If you've been watching Case Watch and you haven't subscribed yet, I'm personally asking you, please subscribe to this channel. Seriously, help me grow this family. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. It takes only a second, but it means a lot to me, and it helps me continue bringing you these cases as they unfold. And don't just watch this one and leave. Stay with me through the entire story, because we're going to go through the footage, the 911 call, what police say happened, what Hamby told officers, and then we're going to get into something that changes the way you look at this entire case. And while you're watching, I want your opinion in the comments. If you see something in the footage that stands out to you, tell me what you saw. If something doesn't make sense, tell me. And if your opinion changes as we go through the evidence, come back and tell me what changed it. Because right now, before we get into everything else, let's go back to the moment this confrontation began. According to police, the incident happened Sunday afternoon, August 23rd, near the BeltLine's East Side Trail by the Kroger on Ponce de Leon Avenue. Just after 4 p.m., Atlanta officers received a report of a stabbing. When they arrived, they found Ramon Harris suffering from a stab wound to the neck. He was rushed to Grady Memorial Hospital, but he did not survive. Police say the confrontation began as a verbal argument involving Harris, Hamby, and another man before escalating into the fatal stabbing. The arrest warrant alleges that Hamby threatened to stab the men before lunging at Harris. But there is something about that description that I want you to hold on to. A verbal argument. Strangers. A knife. A man dead. What happened between those four things? Because the footage gives us a glimpse, but it doesn't necessarily give us every word that was exchanged. And that matters. A witness who recorded the confrontation, Jessica Red, told WSB-TV that the argument became a full-blown confrontation and that she saw Hamby pull out a knife and try to slash people around him. She also said she kept her distance because she was afraid. Now think about that for a moment. If you were standing there and suddenly saw someone pull out a knife, would you have tried to intervene? Or would you have done exactly what that witness did? Back away and protect yourself? I genuinely want to know. Put yourself in that situation before you answer. Because watching it later from a safe place is very different from standing a few feet away while it is actually happening. And while people were trying to understand what was happening, someone called 911.
Line right now next to Kroger and Real Tacos, and somebody just got stabbed in the neck.
Okay, stay on the line with me. I have the address 675 Ponce.
It is between Kroger and Real Tacos. You need to hurry. He's bleeding out. He just got stabbed in the side of the neck.
Get your hands up. Get on the ground. Ready? I got the man on gunpoint. All right, just get on the ground. Behind the Kroger. Get on the ground. I'm behind the Kroger, radio.
The call captures the panic following the attack. People were trying to get help. Emergency responders were on the way, and Harris was fighting for his life. But Hamby wasn't gone. He was still at the scene. When officers arrived, bystanders pointed them toward him. And then the body camera footage begins. An officer approaches Hamby with a weapon drawn. He is ordered to get on the ground. Hamby complies. Officers take him into custody, and the weapon police believe was used in the attack was recovered near the scene. Then Hamby starts talking, and this is where the case takes another turn, because according to the released footage, Hamby tells police he was defending himself. Think about that. A man has been fatally stabbed. The suspect is still standing there. Police arrest him, and his explanation is that he was defending himself. So now look back at the footage you have. What do you think? Do you see something that could support a self-defense argument? Or does the sequence described by police make that explanation difficult to accept? There is no need to rush your answer, because we haven't reached the part that made this case explode beyond one deadly confrontation. Investigators began looking into Hamby's background, and what they found was extensive. Atlanta police say Hamby had approximately 30 prior arrest cycles. He was a convicted felon, and at the time of the BeltLine stabbing, he was on probation for a previous aggravated assault case involving a knife. Now imagine learning that after watching the footage. A man accused of fatally stabbing someone, 30 prior arrest cycles, a previous knife case, probation, and now another deadly confrontation involving a knife. At this point, I want to know what went through your mind when you first heard that. Because for me, that changes the story. Not because a criminal record proves someone committed a new crime. It doesn't. But because it makes the timeline leading up to August 23rd impossible to ignore. And that timeline is where this story gets even more complicated. Hamby's criminal history stretches back years. In a 2017 Fulton County case, prosecutors accused him of stabbing a man multiple times. Court records show he later pleaded guilty to aggravated assault. During that case, he underwent multiple mental health evaluations and was at one point found incompetent to proceed. He eventually received a lengthy sentence, with much of it placed on probation. And then came probation violations. There were additional arrests. There were periods in custody. There were court proceedings. And eventually, Hamby was back in the community. Then came another case in 2025. He was arrested for criminal damage to property. The DeKalb County District Attorney's Office says the state objected to bond, but he was granted bond. However, he wasn't immediately released because other holds kept him in custody. He remained in custody through December 18, 2025. Then, in March 2026, Brookhaven police arrested him for violating his DeKalb probation. The DeKalb DA's office filed a motion to revoke that probation. Hamby later pleaded guilty to the property damage charge. And once again, mental health treatment became part of the conditions. He was ordered to undergo a mental health evaluation within 30 days of release, and to be monitored through mental health probation. Now here's where I want you to pay very close attention. A DeKalb County judge revoked Hamby's probation for 12 months in March, and again required proof of a mental health evaluation within 30 days of his release. Hamby was released in May, but according to those records, he never provided proof that he had completed the required evaluation. 3 months later, he was arrested in connection with Ramon Harris's killing. Read that timeline again in your mind. March. Probation revoked. Mental health evaluation ordered. May. Released. No proof of the evaluation, according to the reporting. August. A fatal stabbing. And now the question isn't simply, why was he arrested before? It's what happened between those dates. What was the court expecting to happen after his release? Who was responsible for monitoring the requirement? Was there an opportunity to intervene? And was there anything legally available that could have kept this from happening? Those are the kinds of things investigators and officials now have to examine. And there is another reason this is becoming such a heated conversation. Hamby's own family says they had been trying to get him help for years. In a statement released this week, the family said they had repeatedly sought long-term mental health treatment for him and believed Georgia's system had failed to provide an effective solution. They described a cycle of brief incarceration followed by release, and said they had been asking these same questions long before the BeltLine stabbing. That doesn't erase what happened to Ramon Harris. It doesn't excuse violence, and it doesn't determine Hamby's guilt. But it does introduce another side to the story. Because now you're looking at a person whose family says they were desperately trying to get him treatment, while the criminal justice system was repeatedly dealing with him. And that brings us to a difficult choice. If someone has serious mental health problems and repeatedly comes into contact with the criminal justice system, what should happen? Should they remain incarcerated? Should they receive mandatory treatment? Should there be a secure treatment facility? Or should the law release them once they have satisfied the legal requirements of their sentence? There's a real argument on every side. And I want to know where you stand. If you believe treatment should have been the priority, say why. If you believe public safety required longer confinement, say why. Don't just drop yes or no. Tell me what you think should have happened. Because there is something else that makes this case even more complicated. The family of Ramon Harris has also raised the issue of systemic failure. A friend of Harris told CBS Atlanta that Harris himself had been experiencing housing insecurity and that the circumstances surrounding his life also reflected larger failures in society. So now we have two people at the center of this tragedy whose lives intersected in a matter of minutes. One man is dead. The other is facing murder charges. And behind both stories are larger issues involving mental health, housing, criminal justice, and public safety. That doesn't mean everyone involved is equally responsible. It means the circumstances are more complicated than a single headline can explain. And Atlanta officials are now looking at those systems. Mayor Andre Dickens has called for a review of BeltLine safety measures, including patrols, camera coverage, and emergency response. He also pointed directly to Hamby's history, saying it raises serious questions about how someone with that record was again in a position to endanger the public. Police have also increased patrols around the area. But here's what I want you to think about. Would more police have prevented this? Would more cameras have prevented it? Would a stronger probation system have prevented it? Would better mental health treatment have prevented it? Or is it impossible to know? That's where I think this case gets uncomfortable. Because after a tragedy, everyone can look backward and identify things that seem obvious. But the people making decisions at the time don't know what will happen tomorrow. They have to work within laws, court orders, available treatment beds, and whatever information is actually in front of them. Still, if a system repeatedly encounters the same person, and that person repeatedly returns to the system, shouldn't somebody eventually step back and ask whether the current approach is working? That's the debate. And it is one Atlanta is now having publicly. Meanwhile, we still have to come back to the moment that started all of this. The confrontation. Look at it again. This time, think about everything you've heard. The police account. Hamby's claim that he was defending himself. The witness account. The 911 call. The criminal history. The probation. The mental health requirements. And the fact that Harris and Hamby reportedly did not know each other before this encounter. Does watching it now change the way you see those few seconds? Tell me in the comments. Because I want to know whether the additional information changed your interpretation of the footage. And there's something else I want you to consider. Imagine you're the prosecutor. You have the footage. You have the witness account. You have the 911 calls. You have the arrest warrant. And you have a defendant telling police that he was defending himself. What evidence would you want to see before deciding whether that claim has merit? Would you want more video? More witness statements? Forensic evidence? More information about what happened immediately before the stabbing? Tell me what you would look for. Because that's how I want us to watch these cases. Not simply looking at the most shocking second. Looking at everything surrounding it. And there is still another piece of this story that matters. Ramon Harris. His friends have remembered him as someone with a bright personality and a generous spirit. One friend described him as a jewelry artist and recalled Harris giving away a bracelet shortly before his death. That detail matters because sometimes, when a case becomes dominated by the suspect's criminal history, the victim can disappear from the conversation. But Ramon Harris should not become just a name in a headline. He was 29 years old. He had friends. He had a life. And now people who knew him are left trying to understand how an ordinary Sunday ended with him dead. So as we continue following this case, that's something I want us to remember. We can debate the criminal justice system. We can debate mental health treatment. We can debate self-defense. We can question decisions. But at the center of all of it is a family grieving someone who isn't coming home. Hamby is now facing murder and other charges. He has waived his first court appearance, and his next court date is scheduled for September 15th. The case is still developing, and officials are now examining the circumstances that led to Hamby's presence on the BeltLine that day. But for me, there is one part of this case that I don't want us to lose sight of. The stabbing lasted seconds. The consequences will last much longer. So after everything you've seen and heard, I want your honest opinion. Do you believe Hamby's claim that he was defending himself deserves serious consideration based on the footage? Do you think the criminal justice and mental health systems had already been given enough warning signs to do something differently? And most importantly, do you believe Ramon Harris's death could have been prevented? Tell me exactly where you stand, and tell me what evidence brought you there. I will be reading those comments. And if you disagree with someone else, that's okay, but explain your reasoning. That's what makes these discussions worth having. If you haven't subscribed yet, please, I'm asking you one more time, subscribe to Case Watch. Turn on the notification bell and stay with us because this story is not over. As more court records, statements, and evidence become available, we'll keep following them. No rushing to judgment. No inventing answers. Just the evidence, the timeline, and the questions that the evidence leaves behind. Because sometimes the most important part of a case isn't the moment everyone sees. It's everything that happened before it. And that's where we need to keep looking. This is Case Watch. And I'll see you in the next investigation.